Hi everyone, this is Yana, and you're watching Inspired by Pinterest video series. For my today's project, I was inspired by the image you see on the right-hand side of the screen, and I used it as a starting point for my card. I like the pattern and the layout, as well as the colors in this photo. To recreate this look, I'm going to use stamps from Paper Smooches. I have two sets here, one with a few sentiments, and then another one with some beautiful floral images. I'm going to begin working on my card by outlining an area in the center. I have a piece of white cardstock. This is Nina Solar White, and I'm using a Presto Punch hard die from Spellbinders as a template to outline a heart shape on my paper. You can use a hard die cut or even hand draw a heart if you like, or substitute a heart with another shape. Just make sure that that shape is large enough to house your sentiment. I wasn't sure which sentiment I wanted to use at first, but this shape looked big enough to fit most of the sentiments in this set, so I just used it. Now, this cardstock that I'm using is just a little bit bigger than an A2 card, but I'm going to be die cutting it later, so size doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going to eyeball everything and carefully trace around this heart shape with a pencil. I will be erasing pencil lines after my stamping is done. Now for my stamping, I'm going to use pigment color box ink from Clear Snap. I will be overlapping a lot of my images, and I need to make sure that they will still be visible on top of each other. I wouldn't recommend using dye ink for this technique, as dye ink is going to go right inside the paper, and overlapped areas are going to be very different. They're going to look different. So it's time to start stamping. I'm going to try to begin with larger images, and then we'll come in with smaller leaves and flowers to fill in the blanks. I'm not going to try to have all of these stamped separately from each other, but just like on my inspiration image, I'm going to overlap a lot of them and do a lot of stamping on already stamped areas. Notice that my stamping has some directionality. I'm making sure that the stamps of my floral images are facing towards the heart in the center. Therefore, all of my images look like they're coming from the center of my card. I'm using a few colors of ink for my stamping, and I'm repeating the colors as I stamp more images. I'm not worrying about the visual triangle here, but I am trying to alternate my colors. I try to have a lighter color next to a darker, more vibrant one. The inspiration image that I used for this card had a more defined heart in the center. It was heavily outlined and therefore was more visible. I decided not to do that. I only wanted to lightly outline the heart with the ends of the stamps of my floral images. Now, I did try not to touch or not to overlap that pencil line when stamping. You will have a very hard time erasing pencil lines if you have something stamped in pigment ink on top of them. So I just tried to stay away, but at the same time stay as close as possible to these lines. You could mask that central area and maybe have shorter stamps for your image, but I did not want to do that. At first, I was stamping randomly, but then discovered that it was easier for me to move clockwise instead of having to come in later and then fill in the blanks. The inks that I'm using, I have them in full-size ink pads and then a few colors in these removable rectangles. These come from large paint boxes from Clear Snap, and I really like them, and I have been using them a lot. There are lots of videos on my channel with these inks, and I even like to use them for watercoloring. After my background was completely filled in with floral images, I stamped my sentiment. I used the Thanks for Being So Awesome one, and I really like that playful font in these sentiments from Paper Smooches. They're very different from other companies. I used black pigment ink from Clear Snap and stamped that in the center. It was slightly bigger than my outline heart, but I think it's okay. I also added a few yellow hearts above and below the sentiment, and I will be adding a little bit of glitter to those later. I'm going to use a Matting Basics die from Spellbinders to trim this piece to be just 1/8 of an inch smaller than a standard A2 card size. I'm going to carefully tape the die down to my paper and send it through my Artisan Explorer machine. I'm not going to do any embossing. I'm then going to erase the pencil lines. Now, because I used pigment ink, I had to wait a little bit for it to dry, as I did not want to smear my images. You can zap it with a heat tool if you do not want to wait. To add some detail, I took this piece to my sewing machine and added some stitching holes. I removed the thread from my machine as I did not want to have any actual stitching, just some pierced holes. There are dies that will cut holes like that, and I actually have rectangles like that from Spellbinders from their Celebrations line, but I only remembered I had those now. Finally, I used foam squares and adhered my stamped piece onto a card base. I then used Wink of Stella glitter pen and added a little bit of glitter to the stamped hearts in the center. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching my video. You can find the list of supplies to create this card in the video description and also on my blog. Please click the thumbs up button if you like to see more videos like this. Thanks, and if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I have new videos coming out every week. Thanks, and bye!